Here we go.
Okay,
Ready?
let's do it.
Okay.
You are punchy. Yes.
I am sorry. It's not just that conversation. There's just a lot there's just a lot
in your,
on in my
yeah.
head, so. But I'm here.
Okay.
I may be a little punchier than usual.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We can handle that. Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things, except for laughter right now, because Michael cannot hold himself together.
There's no moderation.
My name is Erin Green, and I better introduce my co-host because he can't stop laughing. His name is Michael Gray.
Hi.
I think that Michael took the tequila suggestion, or you're a bourbon drinker. Is there bourbon in that coffee mug you're drinking?
No, but there should be.
You're a little punchy.
I am quite punchy today. There's a lot going on, and I had an interesting conversation. Like literally, like I hung up and got on to record with Erin. So I'm just kind of punchy today. I may swear a little bit more than usual. Just heads up.
Well, and it is
feisty.
a topic that could get you fired up.
Yeah. So, let's wait. Let's wait to introduce the topic, and let's do this first. How are you, Erin? How's it going?
I am doing well. Thank you.
Good.
I am enjoying the spring weather. We've had beautiful weather here in Boise, and we are getting some rain this weekend, which I'm not going to complain too much about because we really need it. And I think I'm going to put my garden in this weekend.
Ooh,
so
do you know what you're going to plant yet?
I'll put plenty of lettuce, and I'm going to try and find, there's a variety of zucchini that I planted 2 years ago, and I couldn't find it last year. And so I'm trying to figure out where I got it. I planted everything from starts, and so I don't have seeds or anything for that.
Sure.
So I'm going to try and find that wonderful magic zucchini plant that I had a couple of years ago that was just super reliable and made beautiful veggies. And then I always plant carrots and beets, but usually once they start sprouting, the critters come and dig them up. We have tons of squirrels around here.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll kind of see how this goes, but those are some of my big ones. I planted onions and garlic last year, and those did pretty well. So
Nice.
I'll probably do that again. I usually will put plenty of herbs and some bee-friendly flowers in the boxes. And then, of course, I put tomatoes out in the front, the box kind of down by the street, which I've talked about before. All the kids in my neighborhood love to ride their bikes by and, go out there and play. And then they pick my tomatoes and eat them, which I just love. I think it's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, what kind of lettuce do you plant? Do you
I don't know. I usually get mixes, mixes of different colors and different types of lettuces.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had those. That's cool.
Yeah, so you can just get, it's almost like when you buy a box of spring mix at the grocery store. So it'll have like all these different colors and kinds and that's kind of what I do.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know they grew like that. I always assumed they just like put them together. No. But I learned something new.
I know. See,
all right.
You can be
we
taught.
can quit. We can stop recording. Michael learned something. So real quick story. Speaking of tomatoes, on Monday, I went to the grocery store, and Sophie and Lila both love tomatoes, but Sophie loves tomatoes. Like cherry tomatoes are her jam. Like she will eat those all day long. Like she just loves them. Right. So I get home and she's sitting at the table with a little bowl of ice cream, eating some ice cream. And she sees I have tomatoes and she's like, are those washed yet? I'm like,
oh, funny.
We'll wash them. So we wash them. She gets a handful of tomatoes, sits down at the table with a handful of tomatoes by her bowl of ice cream. Ice cream gets pushed aside. Here go the tomatoes. That's how much she loves tomatoes. Yeah. Little cherry tomatoes. Yeah. Just loves them.
Oh, it's so wonderful. And that's a really good follow up to some of the conversations we've had recently on kids and eating, because they really are intuitive eaters in terms of like, this is a food that I know I really like. And they haven't been tainted by all of the societal BS
Right.
that we're always told that ice cream, of course, you want ice cream over
Yeah.
tomatoes at any given time. Not
Yeah.
Sophie.
Nope. And she
That's
literally
cool.
pushed it aside, like, get out of here. It's time for tomatoes.
I don't need
I
you.
don't need
Ice
you.
cream.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
just
cute.
random tangent because you brought up tomatoes and kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Yeah. Things have been good. We've had really nice weather too. This weekend and the last couple days, I've just had some good like yard work time, which I always really enjoy, which I'll save some of that for later in the podcast. But yeah, it's just been beautiful. We just had a lot of outside time lately, and I love yard work and digging in the dirt and planting stuff and landscaping type stuff. So just getting to do a lot of that has been really enjoyable for me. But we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little bit of an interesting weekend because Matt and I both got our second COVID vaccines late last week. And, of course, you keep hearing the reactions that people have and
just waiting. Like, what's that?
Yeah.
Is that
and
a headache?
So, yeah, exactly. Like, okay, when did the fever and chills start? Well, Matt had his on Thursday and I had mine on Friday. And so I had kind of planned I'm training for a big bike race in June. And I had planned my training schedule around, I might have a reaction. So, let's see if I can, get some training done before that reaction hits. So I went for a big bike ride on Friday, right after my injection. And by Friday night, it was literally like 8 hours after my shot. And it hit me like just, oh, I don't feel so good. Oh, I feel a little bit just sick. I have a little headache. Oh my gosh, it's freezing in here. Oh my gosh, I'm so cold. Oh, but I'm burning up. Like Rally was sitting on my lap. I had curled up in a blanket with a hot cup of tea and it's like 70 degrees out or something. And I'm just it's so cold. Rally sits on my lap and literally it feels like my legs are a furnace. They're just so hot. And he's, of course, loving it, right?
Right.
And so I had a bit of a rough night on Friday night. Of course, Matt didn't really have a reaction. He was just tired, kind of tired that afternoon after his shot. And I mean, kind of laid in bed a little bit the next morning, but then the next day, he was super productive and got all these like chores and, things on his to-do list and went for a bike ride. And I was like, I was knocked out for a while. But of course, Matt's 10 years older than me. And so he jokes that his body has seen a lot more. Like he had measles, before they had the vaccine. And so he
had measles?
I know.
Good grief, Matt.
Right? The man's
Old
50.
Man. Was he in an iron lung too?
And so
he
jokes that his body is like, that's all you got when, when it sees a new vaccine. So,
what this body's seen? Got to give me more than that.
This ain't shit. Yeah. So, anyway.
I just got my first shot this morning. And Kathleen gets her second tomorrow. Good. So we'll see how
Did she have a reaction at all on the first one? Or feel
her arm hurt quite a bit and she felt like a little kind of like funky, not terrible, but like not good, just kind of off and tired.
I was a little bit kind of groggy and lightheaded and a little dizzy that first shot. It was kind of bizarre where I just felt off. I mean, I didn't have the fever, chills, anything like that. And my symptoms this last weekend, as I woke up Saturday morning and I still felt pretty crummy, but as the day went on, I just felt progressively better and better where appetite comes back and, the fever and chills kind of goes down. My energy level starts coming back. And so it really was short-lived. And it was kind of bizarre how you felt so terrible the night before. And usually, you're used to, if you're getting sick and you have those kinds of symptoms, you're like, oh God, this is going to go on for several days. And how bad is it going to get? Which end is it going to manifest itself in?
Or both.
And I just started feeling better on Saturday. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've heard is that people who feel really crappy, it's like just all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I feel quite a bit better, like really quickly. And it's almost jarring how fast you come out of it.
Yeah, it's unlike anything. Yeah, it's unlike any illness you've probably really experienced because it just is so short-lived. And So
Hmm,
I hope you guys have
cool.
a smooth go of it. And I'm
Me
so glad you're
too.
getting your
Thanks.
vaccinations.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. All right. So you want to jump in?
Let's talk about this.
Let's
Speaking
do
of
it.
yay science, we have a little
Yay,
bit of a
science.
science-y kind of episode today.
Hey, maybe that could be like on our merchandise, like on a coffee cup or something. Yay, science.
Yay science. I like
I,
that.
I like that. Yay, science. I'm very serious about that, just so you know. Now, if we do like the tidy tea leaves like we talked about, that would be real fun on the back of a pair of underwear. Yay, science.
Yay science. You know, we have had some people that have expressed true interest in the tidy tea leaves. Our
You
friend
never
of our
know, man.
podcast, Leslie Walla, she
Hmm.
wants the first pair. She's demanded that. So
You never know. You never know. Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to talk about metabolism today.
mhm.
Kind of what it is, help understand it. Because here's my thing about metabolism. I think that as far as like the nutrition fitness world goes, I think metabolism is, if not the most, right at the tippy top of misunderstood things and concepts. It's when people talk about metabolism, like oftentimes when clients talk about metabolism, when I see people talk about it on social media, it's just, there's just a huge misunderstanding of really what it is. And I don't fault anybody for that because there's just a bunch of nonsense information out there. But understanding metabolism is one really important because it's a process in your body that drives a bunch of things, you know,
Mhm.
and it's a living dynamic kind of process that we don't really respect, I think, what it's capable of and how flexible it is. And so I'm just really excited to dive into what is actually metabolism. How does it work for you? What does it do? Dispel some myths around it, that kind of thing. I think it's going to be
Right.
a really important episode.
And understand that this, I mean, we're not going to get too far into the biochemistry of this
Mhm.
and deep into the physiology. We're going to try and keep this light enough that anybody can understand the basics. Um, and and we're talking about human metabolism for
Mhm.
healthy human adults and human bodies. Yes, there are various factors, disease states, um, influences on metabolism, and we're not going to get into too many of the nooks and crannies on that. We're just going to talk about the basics here,
Right.
and then also dispel some of the myths that are out there about metabolism. I know that many of you have probably heard on previous episodes when Michael and I are talking about, I think the one, what happens with food restriction. I
Mhm.
think we kind of started talking about, we threw out starvation mode and we're like, oh my gosh, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
So we will talk about that today, which is
Yeah.
where some of Michael's profanity might come to use.
It might. There's several points in here where I might get a bit animated. We'll say that.
You use the term when we were kind of debriefing for this one and prepping, you use the term we should blast that. And I'm like, okay, we shall.
We just might. Sometimes I get a little soapboxy.
So, do we want to start with just the basic overview? What is metabolism? Like, what does that
Yeah, I think
term
so. And
mean?
then the two types and kind of go through that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
I
place.
mean, basically, metabolism is chemical reactions in the body to break down food so
Mhm.
that your body and your cells can use it.
Mhm.
And the primary food, or nutrients that we're talking about are fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So, fats are broken down into fatty acids. Proteins are broken down into amino acids, and carbohydrates are broken down into sugars, just to put it very simply. So, just to kind of pause there for a second, because I think sometimes people, they hear the term sugar. We're in a sugar phobic society right now.
Yeah.
And when people eat carbohydrates in any form, I'm like, but your body breaks it down into sugars. Like, this is the whole point. Um,
Yeah.
and as you will hear, sugar, primarily in the form of glucose, but in other forms as well, is a really, really important part of metabolism. So
Mhm.
we'll We'll talk about that a little bit. But just know that, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates in the food forms that we know, avocado, chicken breast, and our lovely brown rice, those all are broken down into little building block pieces that then your cells can use.
Right.
And then it goes through a further process with enzymatic activity and is highly regulated by your endocrine system, which basically is your super highway for hormones. All of that comes into play, and it's far too complicated for us to explain. But just know that your body is this incredible system of checks and balances, messengers, carriers, and I like to think of, enzymes as being like the woodsmith out there with the axe. It's just chopping things up, chopping things up into a more usable form so it can actually fit in the furnace. So if you can kind of picture that,
yeah,
that you've got all of these, I think of it, I think I've talked about, the minions in there all working, and it, you can't really see them all working, but they all have a job. This is a very similar concept with metabolism. There are so many players and there are so many factors that go into it. And then all of those little food pieces that have been broken down and carried different places and chopped up by the woodsman and all of this stuff is carried into your cells, either for use as fuel, to be stored. So maybe it's stacked up in the wood pile and used, saved for later, because your body is super smart when it comes to saving things for later. Or it's considered waste and it's removed by the kidneys or filtered out in the liver, or, sometimes removed through your skin, through your bowels, all that stuff. So from the time the food enters your mouth, the way it's broken down and shipped in different places in your body, and then waste is filtered out and released, and then things are, it could be pooped. Yeah, it could be, you could sweat it out. You can
poop it out.
You can poop. Okay, we'll talk about poop, Michael.
You can pee it out, or you can poop it out,
This is why dietitians are not phased whatsoever talking about poop, because we have to know how it goes in, how it comes out, and everything in between. And so poop is definitely part of that process. But you do release some waste through the lungs, like breathing and different things. So, your body is super cool. And this might be kind of a nice little dig at detoxes. Like your body is your body is designed to detox.
Right.
You don't need a special drink or diet or protocol to detox.
It's like, I always say, like, do you have a liver? Do you have kidneys? Are you breathing? Okay, you're detoxing.
Yeah.
Good job. Yep. Your body takes care of that just fine.
Bravo. Let's move on.
Okay. Shut up already.
Exactly. So, now to get a little bit more into, because, people know that metabolism relates to our body weight and, storing. I already talked about storing things or using them for fuel. So in a state of catabolism, starts with a C, catabolism is breaking things down. Okay. So you're essentially releasing the energy from those simpler compounds that the woodsman is chopping up, basically. So catabolism is breaking things down, making them available for energy.
Right.
Anabolism,
like taking a chicken breast you eat, breaking it down into vitamins, nutrients, and shipping them out where they're supposed to go.
Yep, exactly. And then anabolism is taking those simple molecules and building them into more complex ones. So all of those little pieces have been shipped off in your body to these different places, and then they're used for whatever they're needed for. So for example, amino acids could be used in muscle protein synthesis. So your body actually is taking those amino acids and putting them to work to, build muscle. Sometimes you're rebuilding bones. Sometimes you're restoring glycogen in your body and storing those carbohydrates.
Healing a wound or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's a good point, because people who are sick or, they are healing from trauma or anything, your body needs to be in a state of anabolism so it can rebuild and get better. So basically we're balancing out this catabolism and anabolism. this breakdown and buildup. Your body is in a constant fluctuating state of, am I, every day, am I building things up? Do I have a surplus of energy? Do I have a surplus of nutrients so that I can put them to work and build things up? Or am I in a deficit where I'm kind of breaking things down and I'm trying to conserve things? Right. So keep that in mind as we go through this, because this kind of lends itself to the whole simplified calories in versus calories out. Because the way we see this balance between the buildup and breakdown is primarily through body weight gain or loss. I mean, that's probably the simplest way that we see it. And when you store things in your body, the easiest way for your body to store it very efficiently is in fat. So when we see people gain fat from consistent intake above what their body really needs, it's going to store it. And it's going to store it in fat. And then the opposite is true. If you're consistently taking in less than your body really needs, it's going to be breaking down more of that fat and other tissues, which we'll get into, in order to survive, basically. So your body is super smart. It's very adaptable. And yes, we can simply say calories in versus calories out is an accurate way of describing metabolic balance. Yes, it's very simplified. There's a lot of intricacies there, but for the purpose of this podcast, I think we can kind of simply say that. And then, you have some great notes here, Michael, on, some of the different factors that influence metabolism and the rate there.
Yeah. Did you want me to talk now?
Go for it. I talked for 10 minutes. I think our audience is ready for you.
Just kidding. I'm over here like, but so what about the, okay.
Or interject or say whatever you want.
I'm just kidding. No, it was good.
I prattled on.
You didn't prattle. I don't even know what prattle means. Is that like talking aimlessly? Is that what prattle means? Because you didn't. You weren't prattling.
Something like that.
You were illuminating. That's what you were doing. You were illuminating. Not prattling. Okay.
Shining my light.
Shine that light, Aaron. Like only you can. You're a snowflake. All right. So when we talk about metabolism, I think let's see, how would I say this? In my experience, talking to clients and stuff, what it seems like people mean is sort of this like set thing, right? Like there's this thing that has a pace to it and it's just what it is, right? And that's my metabolism. And I don't know that people mean it in this way, but to me, what they're saying is like, okay, I have sort of a set number of calories I need per day for my body, and that's what it is. I don't know that people think of it in those terms, but to me, that's kind of how I break it down. And then I'm able to do things like Aaron said before we started recording, like I can eat some cayenne pepper and that'll speed it up. Or if I have some lemon juice, that'll speed it up. Okay. So that to me, that's about the extent of most people's understanding of metabolism. Okay. So when we're looking at what metabolism actually is, okay, there's 4 things that make up your metabolism. The first is and I'll go through these after I list them all. Basal metabolic rate. Okay. Exercise activity, non-exercise activity, and then the thermogenic effect of food. All right. So there may be some terms in there that you're like, huh? I'll go through those. So your basal metabolic rate. Are you laughing at me?
I'll go through those. I'll explain those.
I'll go through them now.
Never fear, listeners. We're going to keep you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, basal metabolic rate. This is essentially like your body's processes, right? Like if you are not doing anything else, laying still, not going anywhere, how much energy, how many calories does your body need to, for cellular growth, to pump blood through your body, involuntary muscle contractions, those kind of things, just to simply exist. That's your basal metabolic rate. Okay. No extra activity or any extra demands induced on the body. All right.
Yeah. That was me sitting on the couch with Rally Cat this weekend.
But not even petting the cat, not even petting the cat. Okay. That wouldn't be part of it. Right. It's like basic functions. Yep. So here's the thing is your basal metabolic rate makes up around 60 to 75% of your metabolism. A huge majority. 75% is 3/4. Like that's a lot. Okay.
Mhm.
So these are the processes that you're just going through. No matter what else you're doing, these are happening. 60 to 75% of your metabolism comes from that. Okay. So then we have exercise activity. And this, of course, includes things, swimming, yoga, strength training, hiking, I don't know, stretching, riding a bike, whatever. Okay.
Mhm.
That can make up to around 15% of your metabolism. And then we have non-exercise activity. This would be like gardening, grocery shopping, doing
Yeah.
laundry,
Just going
walking up
through
the
your day,
stairs. Yeah, just
fidgeting
yeah,
even.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Which, well, I'll come back to that if I remember. Um, yeah, so it's just doing the things you do, your daily activities, right? That can make up also about 15% of your metabolic
Mhm.
rate throughout the course of the day. Which, isn't it interesting that non-exercise activity and exercise activity are around the same
Mhm.
percentage wise, or can be? So
Mhm.
it's not just about working out. It's just about like, hey, just be more active, get off your butt some more and move around,
Right.
right? Like that can have
Right.
a
Yep.
huge contribution as much as physical activity can, which when I learned that, it kind of blew my mind, right?
Mhm.
And then we have the thermic effect of food. So what the thermic effect of food is just how much energy does it take to break down the food you eat, right? Because when we eat food, it's like Aaron said, it's it's in whole things. It's got to be broken down. It's got to go through that process. The woodsman's got to break it all down, and that takes energy, right? And so different foods we eat require different amounts of energy. So I think this is interesting. So these are ballparks, but so if you have the thermic effect of fat is about 3 to 7% of calories consumed. Okay, so let's say
Yeah.
you eat 100 calories of fat, 3 to 7 of those are going to go into breaking that down and make it usable for the body. The
Yeah.
thermic effect of carbs is like 5 to 15%. So again,
Mhm.
100 calories of carbs, 5 to 15 of those is going to go into breaking that down. And then protein, the thermic effect of that is 20 to 30%.
Yeah. It's quite a
Huge,
bit more.
right? Like a
Yeah.
lot more. And that's because, like think about chewing through a piece of bread versus chewing through some meat. What's
Mhm.
more work? What's more dense? What's more fibrous, right? Like it just takes, there's a lot to it. It takes a while to
Yeah.
break down, which is also
Something
why you can get the meat sweats, which I think is interesting
to me.
because you eat a lot of meat, right? Your metabolism goes up to break that down. That's when we're like, oh my God, why am I sweating from 3
Too
plates of
many
ribs?
barbecue ribs. So one of the other things I think about with proteins is what we learned about in food science. We actually were able to look at proteins being denatured, which is a fancy way of saying you're unraveling the protein. And you're
Right.
basically, proteins are in this tightly wound little ball, this jumbled ball of amino acids and whatever, and your body really has to work to unravel them. And I think about it like untangling a rubber band ball or a ball of yarn. Like how much time
Christmas
does that
lights.
take? Yeah. Oh, Christmas lights is probably even better because those damn things just like stick to each other and they get hooked.
Seriously.
And
Every year.
that's probably why it's that 20 to 30%
Mm-hmm.
of, your energy eating a protein actually
Mm-hmm.
goes toward trying to unravel the damn thing and make it in this usable form. So yeah, I think that's a good point. And just a friendly reminder that we're talking like maybe double digit calories in a day for a lot of this kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
really don't get too hung up on
Yeah. This isn't like,
the
oh, go on
minutia.
a carnivore diet because that increases your metabolism. And yeah, don't turn this into something stupid,
Not what we're
please.
saying. Not what we're saying.
But I do think this is interesting because I don't think people think about it in this way. Hey, if your sole concern is to increase your metabolism, eat some food. Did I just blow your brains? Does that seem super counterintuitive? Right?
I love it.
Yeah, you want to increase your metabolism, eat some food because that's going to do it.
Yep.
You
And I
know?
love going back to your first description of basal metabolic rate, and just that is the cost, the energy cost of just keeping you alive and breathing. I tell people all the time when they come to me with these food hangups about earning food through exercise. Oh, I wasn't very active today, so I can't, have bread with my dinner or something like that. Or I need to just, skip my afternoon snack because I didn't go for a walk or something. I'll say, you earn food from being alive.
Yeah.
And what you just described to us supports that statement. So just keep in mind that, some of these just wacko things that we get told by diet culture and by these biohackers, which we'll get into in a second, really just, they derail us from the science that we know to be true about our human bodies and our very smart bodies, because your body will adapt and do some cool stuff.
Yeah. And to
keep your
recap,
metabolism.
Yay science.
Yay
right?
science.
So
hashtag.
Yeah, hashtag yay science. Yeah. There was something else I was going to say real quick before we moved on. I don't remember what it was. Oh, so bringing this back up, and this was credit to Aaron for putting this in my head. But so when we see things like, oh yeah, cayenne pepper will increase your metabolism. Does it? Sure. So do olives. So does celery. So does a donut.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's stop with the nonsense. Eating, a tablespoon of cayenne pepper and thinking that that's the thing. Whoo, now I'm going to finally, it doesn't do anything, right? Like it's so insignificant and minuscule, and other foods will raise your metabolism way more.
I am picturing what it might be like to eat a tablespoon of cayenne pepper. And have you ever, just Leslie's going to laugh because I'm mentioning her again. She sent me some, is it Tony Chachere's or whatever? Is that what it's called?
Oh, Tony, how do you say it? Chachere's or yeah.
Yeah. It's spicy salt kind of blend, and it has cayenne pepper in it. And whenever I sprinkle it on like my eggs and stuff, and you'll get a little tuft of it will kind of push. And if Matt's in the kitchen, oh my gosh, he'll start sneezing and his eyes start watering. He's like, you weaponize that shit. What are you doing? And I'm like, I just sprinkled it in the pan. So I'm thinking a whole tablespoon of that. Weaponized. I'm just having
it's like Matt anthrax.
Yeah, exactly.
Mail it to your enemies.
Yes. Yeah, we have a
take that, you bastard.
Yeah. Chemical weapon on our hands. Right. So I'm just picturing sorry, I digress. Your tablespoon of cayenne pepper just threw me off because I feel like that's as valuable as anything else I'm saying. Gobs of snot coming out of your face because you've eaten this, but I'm losing weight.
Listen, I'm gonna look so great this summer. So I feel like what you just said is we need to try that on one of these podcasts.
You're up.
I said we. And I didn't mean like we as in one active, one passive.
How about this? We'll do the raisin meditation, but you get cayenne pepper instead of a raisin. He's thinking, everyone.
I'm contemplating
Sounds intriguing.
I'm just thinking that would make that challenge really hard with cayenne pepper to sit there and be very mindful. Yeah. So what does it feel like to have lava in your mouth? Okay. What does swallowing fire feel like going down my throat and into my stomach?
Yeah. What does it feel like to have a blowtorch in your sinuses?
I'd really like to be mindful about this and experience this deeper and more fully.
Sorry, listeners, we have digressed.
That's all right. I think people like it when we digress.
So I hope you all are laughing at this because we're having a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So one of the other things, maybe let's move into starvation mode because what you just said is a really good segue before the cayenne pepper weaponization, story sideline. You're talking about how any food will increase your metabolism. So therefore people will say, oh, well, I go into starvation mode whenever I'm on a diet and I don't eat enough. And all of a sudden my body will hold on to everything and stop losing weight or even gain weight, even though I'm hardly eating anything. This is something that, first of all, this isn't attack on anybody who observes that in themselves or really believes that's happening,
Right.
because what is very likely to be happening is there are some calories and behaviors and eating habits that you're just not quite aware of and that
Right.
you're not noticing. And that's why working with somebody who can kind of tease out some of those things and really, have these honest conversations about what is actually happening with eating and some of these, habits that we get into. Another thing I'll see in that situation is people will um, restrict so severely, and then they can't hold it, so they restrict
Mm-hmm.
and restrict and restrict for a number of days, and then they just go off the wagon and just
Right.
eat and eat and eat for a number of days again.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, I was hardly eating anything and I didn't lose weight. Well, you know it we need to look at the eating habits and how that works. So
Right.
starvation mode, go ahead.
Or it's kind of the classic, like, Monday through Friday,
Oh yeah.
it's like, oh, 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories. Like I'm hardly eating anything. And the weekends come and it's like, oh, weekend, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like I don't even have any idea what I ate,
It's just a cheat meal. It's a cheat day.
Yeah,
It's a cheat
it's
weekend.
a cheat weekend every week,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and it just kind of, yeah, works against you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Um, and just to clarify, when we talk about, the NIH, I think has, and I've seen that the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute also has some um, recommendations on the lowest end of calorie intake
Mhm.
that people should aim for to be a healthy, and they categorize it just as male and female. So for males, it's no less than 1,200 calories a day. And for females, it's no less than 1,000 calories a day,
Yeah.
which is why apps like MyFitnessPal really don't allow you to go under that when you're setting your caloric targets. Now,
Mhm.
in very specific settings, there are these diets called VLCDs, so they're very low calorie diets, and they will go, and they're medically supervised. So this is not something I do, it's not something Michael does, it's not something that's for the mainstream
Yeah.
to go into these
This isn't
super.
the magic trick you're waiting for. Okay. So don't
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that. Yeah.
they're not super, they're very again, special circumstances, they're medically supervised. And the purpose of having medical supervision is because you literally cannot meet your nutrient requirements on that little of food
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
So, what results when you go beyond that and you go into starvation mode? Well, let's just acknowledge what starvation means. And that really is literally not giving your body enough to survive.
Right.
You are
Like,
not giving your body enough fuel to survive.
yeah. Like, have you seen the videos of like the people in Africa who are literally dying because they don't have enough to eat? That's starvation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this without any judgment of someone who has used this term about themselves, but I think it's really important that we don't disrespect what true starvation is. And
Yeah.
for us to, yeah, no judgment here, but once you've heard this, change your thinking, please, because there are literally people who are dying because they're starving. And so for us to be like, well, I think I can't lose that last 5 pounds because I'm in starvation mode and my body, it's just, to me, once you understand that, it's wildly disrespectful to
Mm-hmm.
people who are actually in this situation. It's
Yeah.
not what's happening. You are not starving. You're not in any way. So okay.
Yeah. I
All right.
can,
I
no,
just had to say
that's
that.
a very good point. And in, I think in keeping with our, many of the topics that we've talked about, whether it's food relationship and some of the hardships that people, um, have when it comes to food and some of
Mm-hmm.
the messaging that we get in the nutrition world, that is one of those like ableist, classist kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things that because we have such an abundance of food, sometimes we can be a little bit flippant
Mm-hmm.
about, I wish I could just not eat. I wish I could just turn off my appetite. I wish I could, go into starvation or what,
Yeah.
all of these
Yeah.
things. That's a good problem to have kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good point, Michael, to just we need to be respectful about
Mm-hmm.
humans in general and what it takes to be a healthy
Yeah.
human.
And so if you've used that, honestly, I don't mean any disrespect to you if you've used that, because I get why. It's an incredibly prevalent thought in this industry. Incredibly. So if you've used that before, if you've wondered that, if you felt that, I mean, I have zero judgment. But as we go through this, I think it's really important that you change your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, not to
So
get all
the
serious.
primary, yeah, I know. We'll lighten it up again in a second. I'm sure you will.
Poop. There. We're back to poop.
Okay. So the first priority of metabolism when in starvation mode is to provide enough glucose for the brain to work and for the blood cells to work, because those two tissues have to have glucose. We'll talk a little more about ketones in the brain in a second, but they're dependent on this fuel. And so your body automatically starts detecting, like, okay, we don't have enough glucose circulating. How do we get that? We carry enough fuel. A well-nourished human being carries enough fuel in their body for 1 to 3 months of survival in muscle and fat storage, and in your organs, which is probably an unsavory thought, but just to let you know that your body will break down organ tissues to survive.
Just to let you know.
So, just to let you know, if you don't like eating liver, if you go into starvation mode, true starvation mode, you're going to be eating liver essentially.
You like liver? How about your own?
The interesting thing is your body can only carry about 1 to 2 days of glycogen storage. And so if it's not replenished, your body really starts figuring out, how do I keep blood sugar going and how do I get more glucose? How do I make it from other sources? So then in the first day, just a basic 1-day fast that some people may engage in, you just see a shift of reliance on glucose into fatty acids for energy. You do see some muscle breakdown, because that is not only to get the glucose out of your muscles so that your body can keep that blood sugar stable, but also to meet some demand for amino acids as well. And then after about 3 days, your brain will get about 1/3 of its energy from ketone bodies. And those are made highly available because the fat is being broke down at such a rapid rate. So your body gradually starts shifting into this mode. And we, Michael and I were joking before we came on here about how, it seems like humans try and just manipulate and biohack the shit out of their metabolism and their physiology, and then their physiology is like, that all you got? Yeah. Let me show you what I can do. And just starts working around the system. It finds a way.
Yeah. And that's the thing about like going into true ketosis, is that's like your body, like, oh shit, right? This is like
right.
Last resort of like, okay, so you're going to ignore all the signals. Like people talk about getting into low carb, getting into ketosis, like, oh, I feel so sluggish and I feel stupid and I feel slow and I feel sick. And that's because your body's going like, hey, idiot, eat some food. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, we're telling you, eat something.
Yeah.
Right? Like we need some carbs to do the stuff we need to do. And if you go long enough, it's like, fine, I'll do this other thing because you're not going to listen to me.
Because you're an idiot.
Yeah. And so using like ketones for fuel it's like your body's last resort. It's like, we can't function in the way that we want and need to function. So we'll have to do this other thing. It's not ideal. It's not optimal, but fine. I guess we'll have to do that. It's to me, it's kind of like your body giving you the middle finger. Like, you know what, buddy?
Right.
Fine. Just leave me alone. I am so tired of you.
I'll do my thing.
I'll just do it myself.
Watch me survive. And after, so just, piggybacking on that, after several weeks of starvation, and this is where we truly get into starvation, like the true meaning of starvation. Ketone bodies become the primary fuel for the brain and the heart. Yeah. And really it's your body's way of surviving, like going into that mayday mode of, we need to provide some form of fuel. Now, not to get too far into ketogenic diets or anything, but I know that a lot of listeners are probably hearing this and going, well, then why the hell would anybody recommend a ketogenic diet? Well, ketogenic diets are, I mean, they are not in a starvation state. They are manipulating the availability of carbohydrate in your body so that your body can actually adjust its metabolic preferences. I shouldn't say that, because your body's true preference is to use glucose and carbohydrates. So you're manipulating that preference into, this is what you have available, so use this instead.
Yeah,
so it's using those fatty acids.
You're limiting what resources it has to operate with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you only give it certain resources that aren't the preferred resource, it's still going to do what it has to do, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not the ideal situation.
Right. And keep in mind that with ketogenic diets, a lot of people claim they're on a ketogenic diet when really they're just on a low carb diet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
Big
still
difference.
getting carbohydrates, but
Mm-hmm.
you're eating high protein and plenty of fat. True ketogenic diets are predominantly fat with moderate protein and very, very limited carbohydrates.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of them for a number of reasons, but just the main ones for full transparency are that I really think that it takes a lot of attention and creativity to actually meet your nutrient needs through a ketogenic diet.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to suit your flavor preferences, your cooking abilities, your available food. And it's not feasible for a lot of people. Secondly, there's a reason why very few people sustain themselves for years on a ketogenic diet, because it is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
It can be extremely restrictive, and if not done correctly, can lead to a number of negative outcomes. So,
Yeah. Well, and I
yeah.
think, you'll hear people talk about who are arguing for pro keto. They'll talk about like professional athletes, right? How like so and so's doing it and they say they're performing better, So a couple thoughts there. One, you're not a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't say that it's like you shouldn't have access to the same sort of like elite level performance. It's more about people who make it to that level of sport have lived their life building and instilling and developing phenomenal amounts of self-discipline. Right. And so things that are hard for general public people to maintain are easier for them because they've developed insane amounts of willpower and grit and just like, I don't care how uncomfortable or miserable I am. I just drive through it. Okay. Maybe not a healthy mindset for you to be in. Okay. So that set aside. Also, you don't know that that's the thing that has them performing better, right? It's one piece of information. Now, maybe in going into a keto diet, they stopped eating a lot of processed stuff. Anybody's going to feel better doing that. It may have nothing to do with the amount of carbs. May have to do with just food sources. It may have to do, a bunch of other things, So that's an argument I hear a lot. Well, there's athletes who, these UFC fighters who are performing so well and da, 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 da. It's like, that's a whole different thing. And we have not even close to enough information to say that that's what's causing performance.
Right. And
there's
you are not them.
Placebo.
Yeah.
Sometimes we change things. We're like, I just have a lot of hope and this is going to do it. And so we just innately perform better.
Well, and we don't know the details of that person. I mean, you might read in a magazine article or a blog or, this athlete puts it out there or, just back to our celebrity hacks, they might put it out there like, oh, this is the diet I follow, or this is the recommendation. Well, we don't know the details of how they implement that in their daily lives. They could really want to do that. And maybe they follow it for a few weeks and then they have, an off time or, they're whatever, they have life demands that put them in a situation where they can't follow it exactly right. Which is, similar with intermittent fasting. That's another one that I get questions about when it comes to metabolism, because a lot of people say, well, it, increases, intermittent fasting increases your hormonal production and shifts gene expression and reduces inflammation and increases insulin sensitivity. All of these are, yes, they're valid outcomes that we have observed,
Right.
but in limited studies with usually small populations and with, I would say, not very robust research protocols for a lot of these things. Is that to say that I'm completely against intermittent fasting? No, because I do it every day. I eat dinner
We all
and then I go to
intermittent
bed.
fast. Yeah. Like, are you eating through the night? I mean,
Right.
honestly, even like between breakfast and lunch, you're fasting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, yeah, we all
Yeah.
fast. So it's just
Which comes into when people argue that you have to eat consistently every day to keep your metabolism high. I mean, that's another myth that I'm like, well, you putting the diet industry said putting people on this, eat 6 times a day, it keeps your metabolism revved, it keeps you from getting
right.
hungry, it's good for fat burn and for calorie burn. Well, yeah, but if you're eating 6 times a day and you're overshooting your calorie needs, that's not, none of that's going to make a difference. Like, it's
Right.
not going to result in weight loss for
Right.
you.
Well, and even just like, so, I remember, when I first started training, that whole like 5 to 6 meals a day was like, it was hot,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
that's the thing.
like it was the thing, right? Like you got to stoke that furnace, keep that
Mm-hmm.
metabolism running hot. So here's the thing about that. Let's say you eat 2,400 calories in a day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's split up into 3 meals, theoretically 800 calories each meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So if
Yeah.
that's split up into, let's say, 6 meals, that's 400 calories at each meal. Okay. So when I eat let's say 3 800-calorie meals, my metabolism responds appropriately. It raises to digest, absorb, do all that stuff for 800 calories 3 times. The other situation, it raises to meet the demand of 400 calories 6 times. So, yes, is your metabolism up like more often with more frequent meals? Yes, it's up 6 times, but only to a level to meet 400 calories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, is it in the 3 meal situation? Is it spiking less
Yeah.
often? Yeah, but it's spiking higher. So, you know what it
Yeah.
means? It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. It's all the same. It metabolized 2,400 calories, whether it's all at once or it's spread out into 17 meals, it's all the same. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So this gets into the people that are into biohacking and they have their specific diet that they are trying to promote, or their protocol that worked for them. I'm not saying that none of these things can work for someone or
Right.
can influence somebody. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a platform. Keto
Right.
diets, intermittent fasting, any, detoxes, any of these things. Obviously, somebody has found value in these practices. What I'm saying is, and what Michael's saying too, is that we're really getting caught in the weeds of nutrition when when it comes to weight loss, a caloric deficit is what is needed. I mean, bottom line, you need a caloric deficit. The ketogenic diet, the intermittent fasting, low carb, any of these diet approaches, if they create a caloric deficit, you're going to have weight loss. And then one of the other things with just back to starvation mode real quick is I hear people say that they reached a weight plateau. And so they think that their body just went into starvation mode all of a sudden. Right. Yet they're still eating. They're still eating consistently, but they're just all of a sudden they claim starvation mode. Well, what happens with weight loss is your body gets smaller. I mean, let's go back to basal metabolic rate and realize that the vast majority of the calories you eat go to keeping your body operational and alive.
And the more tissue you have, the more that's needed.
Absolutely.
Whether it's muscle, fat, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you're bigger, you need more. If you're smaller, you need less.
And if you're smaller, you need less. Yeah. So you lose weight to a certain point, and then your body kind of starts regulating and saying, oh, well, I'm getting the right amount of calories to maintain this body weight. Now, some people would argue, well, but I've tried, decreasing even further and I'm not losing weight. I must be in starvation mode. Well, there are a lot of factors that I would personally look at with that person. Are we truly in a caloric deficit? But also, let's kind of acknowledge that maybe your body doesn't want to be any smaller than it is, and is, we could get into that set point theory and that idea that your body has a happy place where it's fully operational, it's healthy, it's mobile, it can do the things you want to do, and it can produce all the hormones and different functions that you need. And this happens to be the weight that it lands at.
Yeah.
And pushing it below that can lead to all kinds of issues.
Yeah.
So
it might be that, again, your body's going, hey, idiot, eat some food.
Exactly. I picture
this isn't good. Knock it off.
I'm picturing that scene on the Grinch. I don't know if you've seen the Grinch with Jim Carrey when he's
it's been a while,
talking back to the echo in the cave. And he's like, you're an idiot. Or he goes, I'm an idiot. And he wants the echo to say, I'm an idiot. And instead the echo goes, you're an idiot. Anytime you say idiots, reminding me of that. Anyway.
I say it with love.
I know. One of the final myths that I wanted to address when talking about metabolism is, people really get into this whole fat burning thing, right? So we already acknowledged that if you have excess calories in your system, your body is going to want to store them primarily as fat. So then people want to burn that fat. How do I mobilize that fat and get rid of it? And they kind of get caught up in this idea that fat burning means cardio.
Right.
And so, if you go to any machine in the gym and you set your cardio setting on the fat burn range, it's just this steady aerobic, pretty low intensity, kind of range. What we do see about manipulating metabolism, and when I say manipulating, I really mean like boosting it, keeping it firing and ready to go, and burning calories and using calories in an efficient way. One of the ways to do that is with high intensity exercise and with strength training. So I caution people when we get into this just very like slow and low kind of aerobic cardio training for quote fat burn, you could actually be doing a lot more on that fat burning front by high intensity exercise, strength training, building more lean body mass, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like when someone's wanting to lose body fat, as far as my sort of hierarchy, right? Like your diet, your nutrition is going to be number one. Number two, strength training without question. Number three, some sort of high intensity interval cardio stuff. Number four is probably going to be like walks around your neighborhood, leisurely bike rides, just being more active. And then on top of that, some steady state jogging, that kind of stuff. There's wonderful benefits like heart health and that kind of stuff to steady state cardio, but it's not super efficient for fat burning. It's just not. There's a lot of other things that I would have people prioritize. And then to piggyback on the fat burning zone, right?
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing about that is you'll see it on every freaking treadmill and every freaking gym, right? Like if you want to be in the fat burning zone, then you need to have your heart rate at this, in this range.
Right.
Here's the thing about the fat burning zone is it's a heart rate range where you burn a higher percentage of the calories you're expending from fat. Okay. If you notice, it's a lower percentage than other zones. Okay. The less intense an activity is, the higher percentage of calories burned come from fat. So if you really want to get in an insane fat burning zone, go lay on the couch because a huge majority of the calories you're burning laying there watching whatever are going to come from fat. This is a blatant, disgusting manipulation by the industry. It really is. It's gross to me. Okay. Because you're not burning as many calories. And when it comes to weight loss and that kind of stuff, your body doesn't care if it comes from fat or from sugar, wherever. It just needs to burn the calorie. It all levels out. It all figures it out. So it's a huge misnomer. It's just completely backwards. taking truth and manipulating it and then going like, here you go, here's a thing.
Right.
And
Which the diet industry and fitness industry is so good at doing
So
that,
much.
taking a
Yeah.
kernel of truth and
Yeah.
blowing it up into some BS.
So
And
forget fat burning, just work hard.
yeah,
Just work hard.
Well, and just to, help explain that more. I mean, you did a great job of just saying that the lower intensity the exercise, the higher percentage of fuel is going to come from fat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens when you go beyond that predominant fat burning
Mm-hmm.
source, okay, for fuel? What happens when you go beyond that? You start burning carbohydrates for energy. You start burning, and those carbohydrates actually add up on top of the calories from fat you're burning. So
Right.
you're burning more calories,
Yeah.
even if the percentage of fat from those calories is going down as a substrate. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
No, I think you're
sounds like
it.
maybe confusing. Okay.
No, I don't think so. And to apply that to something you said earlier, while we admit it's I wouldn't say simplification, but it's a real simplification of calories in, calories out. It's not calories in, fat calories out.
Right.
Right. It's not. It's just calories.
Mm-hmm.
And to your body, calories are calories. And that's a simplification again, but really, you don't need, if you're trying to lose weight, you need to know it's super.
You don't need to know all of this. Actually, you just need to know.
You don't really. You don't need to know if you're burning calories from fat or
and macros and all this other stuff.
It doesn't matter. And it's just a really good way for you to get lost in the weeds and think that these wildly insignificant things are incredibly important. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. That's all that happens. Yeah. And just don't even worry about it.
Yep.
For reals.
So now that you have this down and dirty metabolism 101 conversation, I hope this sheds some light on some of the, misconceptions and maybe misunderstandings that people have had.
Yeah.
And I think through the diet process for years.
If there's a takeaway, I feel like it's don't be an idiot.
That's a great takeaway. That should be like the takeaway, the capstone of every podcast we do.
And I think that needs to go on our merch too.
Don't be an idiot. Yay, science. Don't be an idiot.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, that was a pretty thorough rundown of metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you have further questions, if this is confusing to you, reach out to us. We're happy to go a little bit further into the science-y side of things. But, really, I think too many people try and become armchair scientists when it comes to this. And your body is very wise and it's very adaptable, and it will find a way. It'll find a way to survive. It'll find
just
a way to conserve.
Finds a way.
Yeah. Oh boy. What's your meaning in the mundane this week?
My meaning in the mundane. I could pinpoint a specific thing, but I'm just gonna an era of my life that lasted a few days, and it was just what I said earlier. Just honestly, just spending a lot of time outside. We're putting in some stepping stones in the grass, and we took out some plants that died in that freeze, and just being outside and working, digging and hands in the dirt. And I just love that stuff. And so it was there were just 3 or 4 days and even a little bit this morning in a row where it was just I love this, just the sunshine. It's been beautiful. Humidity's been super low, nice breezes. It's just been, yeah, I love it. Love it.
Wonderful. It's like medicine.
Yeah. It is medicine. I feel like there's something so powerful in just getting your hands in the soil, connecting with the earth and remembering how vital it is to us, because it's easy. I mean, it's easy to not really experience it all, throughout your day. So it was just several days of just really enjoying being outside.
Oh, nice.
And working in the yard. Yeah.
Very good. Mine actually has to do with being outside as well. And mine is a specific, I know we keep piggybacking on each other's mundane moments. But mine is a specific instance because Matt got his second COVID shot on Thursday and he came home from work and was just kind of like, I need to go lay down. And this is something, Matt is a power napper. Like he
Yeah.
can lay down and be deep breathing within a minute. It's incredible. And so
Wow.
taking a nap at, 7 p.m. Is not something I would advise, but it is something that Matt has been known to do and can still like go to bed at a decent time and function.
I'd
Anyway,
be wrecked.
oh my gosh, I know. So he goes to lay down and I'm kind of like twiddling my thumbs and what am I going to do, And I, of course, the kind of my norm is to go sit on the couch and watch some Netflix and just kind of cozy up for the evening. My day is over.
Mhm.
But it was an exceptionally pretty night and it was, sun's still out late here. I mean, the sun doesn't really go down until 9. And so I decided I've been looking at my garden boxes, which have a bunch of dead stuff in them from, the end of last season. I was like, I need to clean those out. Okay, I'm going to go do that. And I just popped in a podcast and went out and played around in my garden boxes and just,
Awesome.
cleaned out all the dead stuff and
Mhm.
just some of the things that over winter, are coming back and turning all green and pretty. And so when you clip back the dead stuff and you see that green coming out from underneath, it's just this very joyful anticipation,
Yep.
of the season changing and the earth coming alive again. And it was just delightful. Like go out
Awesome.
there and, Rally's kind of moseying around in the catnip and keeping me company. And
Yeah.
it was a really nice, pivot from my typical like sit inside and cozy up on the couch, which is delightful too. But this
Mhm.
was a really nice reminder that I love the gardening thing and
Nice.
being outside. So that was mine.
Yay. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being outside's the best.
Hmm.
It is like medicine, just sunshine and yeah, just laboring in the yard. I feel like it's
Yep.
even if you come in exhausted and sunburned, it's just like I feel
Yeah.
good. What a
And
great.
all the smells, everything's blooming
Mhm.
right now, which my allergies are not thrilled about, but
Yeah.
it is really, really nice to like smell the things blooming. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
And thank
Thank you
you for
much.
hanging with our humor and our side stories today. And we look forward to connecting with you next week.
Yep. Have a great one.